is your book then?
Yes.
Okay, on the table. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so proud having you, Dan. He is a fellow long-term researcher. He is quite modest. That's probably why not many people know you. But I'm glad you came out with this book. It's been a pleasure that you have written a book on the ground level of crop circles, because we really needed it. So many people look at the imagery and thinking, wow, they are stunning, but on ground level they can be even more stunning. So I'm really looking forward to what you have to say. And also there is one slight problem. The printer didn't deliver on time, but he will deliver on, what is it, Friday?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I should be able to bring them here.
So the people who would love to have a signed copy can order it through him. It will be or sent to them, or they can collect it over here from Friday onwards.
Yeah, that is it.
That's it. Okay.
Thank you very much. Welcome. It's all about the book here, but I'm going to sort of talk you through what has led to this. So I've been in this for 22 years of research. So when I describe the pages here, I'm calling it my life's work, because that's sort of what it feels like. It's not my job. Just to make that clear, it's not what I do as a job, but it's as Monique says, it's a combination of 22 years of walking around fields and crawling around on my hands and knees, taking photos of the finer points that you see when you visit crop circles. Hopefully you all have, and if you haven't, then if that day is to come, it's a joy for you when you first go in, and changes everything about your life, don't you think, Monique?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It just happened. I'm going to talk you
I
through.
just want to say one thing, because people might not.
Please speak slowly.
Okay, might not know your website. It's pointed out over there.
Yeah.
As you can see, so that's really a great website if you want to have a look on ground level. Okay, go on.
Yeah, sure. So what I'll do is tell you about a bit of my background in the crop circle research world, a bit more about what's sort of the content of the book, and why we think it's an important element of the crop circles to report on ground details. So hopefully I can give you a bit of a lowdown on that, and show you some nice pictures, basically. Yeah, it's sort of a picture book, really, or there is some typing as well. So here's, that's the front cover, that's why I'm here. In 2003, I heard in those days they would report crop circles sometimes on local radio, which seems unbelievable, and I lived in Brighton, in the southeast of England. So I hadn't been into a crop circle, but I had met Andy Thomas when he I think published a second edition of Vital Signs. If you know that book, it's like the best sort of overview of the phenomenon, tells you about everything you need to know. And if you haven't read that, it's brilliant. He's a brilliant writer. I'd seen him give a talk and met Andy briefly. Heard on the local radio that this was here, this was there. So my wife and I we were driving to see someone anyway, drove past the field. But I didn't really have an intention of going in. We were interested to see it because I'd heard the talk, I was into it, but I hadn't visited any. And then as we drove, you could sort of see on the edge of the top right, the road follows round. Gives you an idea of the scale, and it's really blurry, this, because it's in those days you didn't have drones. Steve Alexander was flying helicopters, but this was, I think, David Russell or Andrew King would fly a small aeroplane and take photos. So it's an old photo, but these are cars So it kind of gives you an idea of the scale of this. It's enormous, and it appeared in the rear view mirror as we drove along here, and as we drove past, I saw Andy Thomas and Alan Brown just getting the gear ready to walk up into the field. All right, is this a coincidence? Special guest.
No.
Hi. Oh, like some ex-pupils. That's taken me by surprise.
Sorry.
I stopped the car, right? Just driving along, it's quite a busy road. Stopped the car and jumped out because I saw Andy, and I sort of made the snap decision that if anyone knows what they're doing and has got permission to walk into the field, or just this is a person to go with. So I jumped out the car, and my wife hopped into the driver's seat and drove off, and I ran in. So I sort of ran up into the field and met Andy and Alan up there. And I've been talking about this a lot lately because this is the culmination of all of that work that happened since that one day, 25th of May 2003. And I've sort of been talking about whether, if I hadn't have seen Andy at the side of the field, if I hadn't gone there, that exact second, that 1 second as we were driving past him, I saw him wearing he's got quite a distinctive white flat cap that he seems to wear when he visits crop circles, and other times probably. If it hadn't been for that one moment of stopping my car and running in, I don't know if this journey would have started or carried on in the same way. So my point is just that this was a revelatory moment for me with Andy, and the start of it all. And you'll see when we have more copies of the book, and you can have one. He's written the foreword to Layers of Mystery. So for me, it's a sort of, yes, I'm describing this as my life's work in crop circles, but also it has, if you will excuse the what I'm about to say, it's come full circle with Andy contributing to this and being there on the very first moment. So it doesn't go on like this, but I am telling you a little bit about the background. There it is. What a beauty. A week later, also on local radio, which I'm emphasising this because that doesn't happen now. You're not going to find out about a crop circle on local radio, no way. Just outside Brighton, the other direction, Sompting, which has since but previously had a lot of crop circles in this particular field. So we went there. I haven't got ground shots because in those days I was just walking around in awe of the fact that I was just getting into it. I didn't have an agenda. But so this was only my second crop circle, which was within that 1 week sort of time frame. And in it, there was another revelatory moment here, because walking around it, you wouldn't see it if I showed you a close-up photo, but around the perimeter here, this was clockwise. The wheat stems are clockwise, but around the very, very outer perimeter, one single stem thickness was a row, a line of stems flowing anti-clockwise against the flow, against all of the clockwise. And it's so you don't see this, you don't just walk around and see it. But so this was a second moment in time for me, because of being in only my second crop circle that I'd ever set foot in, to notice this, the most intricate of features. I just sort of felt like this is, it's a calling for me here, because how would I see it? I could walk in there 100 times and not come across that, but I did come across it, and so that sort of launched me into this. I'm so into crop circles at this stage. I'm more into it now. It goes up, doesn't it? It increases every year. Everyone you go to, you love it more and more, right? But I, at that moment, thought this is the thing for me. Not just crop circles, but ground features, this level of detail. As Monique said, when you look closely at what's inside crop circles, you're more often than not, your eyes are opened to the fact that what you see from above, which is magical and geometric and precise and amazing, is reflected on the ground, is reflected in the weaving of individual stems, or some of those features that are more common, some are rarer. I'm going to go on to some of those in a minute. But those two circles are my entry into this. Then in 2005, my friend Chris Riley and he makes websites, and late one Friday or Saturday night we just thought, let's just make a website about this. A bit on a whim, let's just do it. So we did it, and then that's also been then nearly 20 years worth of. That's where my documenting of this phenomenon is. So actually, another hurrah. So yeah, I was wondering if you're here as well. Yeah. We made the website, and in those days it took a really long time because you didn't have. I don't think you had broadband. I think it was the old days. Rowan and Elise will tell you that as a teacher, I often come out with a phrase, when I was a boy, this was, or the tales of wisdom, this is one. Because in those days you didn't have the internet really, you had the dial-up connection. So it's hours and hours and hours to do anything, and since then times have changed. But without the website, without all of these things sort of falling into place, we wouldn't be sitting here with me talking to you now. So I'm trying to just illustrate that path of either choices or coincidence, synchronicity that leads to a lifetime of magic and wonder, which I'm so lucky to have had. Look at that beauty. I'm not going to react to every one of my photos in the same way, maybe I will. That was in 2005, and that was just outside Brighton in Ringmer, and it's just amazing. It's just so good because you can't make a ring manually, let's say, without standing in the middle of it. I don't think. And then when you look at this, you see the same thing. And I'll show you some other photos of that because it's a lovely feature, and it's right out. If you're out visiting and you've been up to Normanton down, you've seen what we're talking about here. The standing stems in the centre. No matter what, you cannot walk into that without making a path. Oilseed rape, barley, wheat, nothing. It can't be done. So that is a beauty, and that doesn't get a lot of this. Crop circle didn't get a lot of publicity really because it's just a small ring in Ringmer, but I love it. So there it is, and my friend Alex there. So the single stem counterflow catapulted me into this is a thing that I want to document. So what I'm going to show you is the contents page of the book. Because in starting to write this, I had to kind of get a list together of every single ground feature that I've seen. And it started with 20 or so, and then I'd remember, whilst writing one chapter at a time, I'd remember something else, So, and then there's 36, it's not a definitive number, it's 36 different things that I've seen over 20 years, or if I haven't, there's one that a man called Barry Reynolds documented with Andy Thomas at Berlin Gap, which I didn't see, but the rest I have. So yes, I was going to show you in here, but I needn't. It's the contents page that covers everything that hopefully that I've ever seen. And some of those things are more prominent than others. Some of them are reasonably common. If you've been to any number of crop circles, you might have a sense of the things that you see often, like a clump of standing stems with the flattened stems sort of swirled around them. It's reasonably common to see such a thing. As soon as you've got circles, you more often than not have standing stems in the middle, or a splayed, flattened centre. Whereas there are other things, nests, cross-hatching. Haven't got any photos in the slideshow of that, but they're rare. Cross-hatchings, I think I've only seen it 4 times. I don't know what about you, Monique, but I'm just going to test your knowledge there. But
I think they're starting to come back. We call a lot of them dragons' footprints, and they used to appear as expressions of intense magnetic activation along major meridians.
okay,
And they always heralded the crop circle coming. And I think they're coming back. I think there's some in a field as you whiz to Marlborough along the Michael and Mary, because I've been there before, is a line of these.
yeah. I know the thing. I haven't seen those, but I was just thinking about dragon's footprints on the way here today. That's not because I've seen some recently, but I know the thing you mean. So I'm going to show you a little selection of photos and features, and then I'll show you some photos from Normanton Down from this year. So bent nodes are impossible to create with a human hand. Can't make that happen. They're nearly always, they're solid. In standing stems, they're basically, the stem's vertical. And in crop circles, I'm going to say fairly rare, but we do see them. On occasions, we'll find a whole load of bent nodes. So this is a feature that is reasonably definitive. You cannot make that happen. The way it can happen with just a natural process is that if stems are flattened in green crops, they will start growing back up towards the sun, phototropism. And where they grow from is the node. So you could find, if you visited a green crop circle, a few days after it's appeared, if the stems were flat, they'll start growing back up. So you'd see this, but it would be uniform. They'd be flat, and then you'd see the bend this way. Whereas in crop circles, when we see bent nodes, they're often sideways. Sometimes in the best examples, the phoenix. Is there a photo of that here in this room?
Yeah, no, well, upstairs at the exhibition.
The phoenix is one of the all-time greats. I was looking through your booklet, Monique, and it's the same. It's this feature is the phoenix, and it's there. I think Frank Lauman's photo of it.
Yes.
But, in the phoenix, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll have to look at the picture. It's a phoenix. It's just really detailed, really intricate. One of the all-time most amazing crop circles there's ever been. In there, bent nodes formed the direction of some of the flow of the stem, so they were sideways, and they were everywhere. And there was a smaller formation in just to the corner of the same field, which was like a dragonfly, that had appeared the week before, and that was full of bent nodes as well, just as a point in history. They're an amazing feature. They're just properly really good, and so if you're visiting a crop circle, it doesn't have to be in green crop, but if you're on your hands and knees and you notice some of that, you're onto something, because it's something else really good. Don't know if I've got any more photos. I think I've just got one photo of each thing. I'm going to talk to it. Have we got a time on the talk? So if everyone's happy, I'll just keep going until I finish. Because I thought it was half an hour, but I've already spoken for 20 minutes, so you won't mind. Standing tufts, right? So this is what I've spoken about already. Sometimes the centre of a circle, small or big, is completely flat. Sometimes it's swirled either clockwise or anti-clockwise. Sometimes it's sort of splayed, like fanned out. Often, this is seen from above, often there's a bunch of standing stems, sometimes just one, really intricate, sometimes lots. You might call that, or you definitely would call that here. They're a nice feature. They're lovely. They take a lovely photo. I don't take so many photos from above, but it's just that kind of gentle flow of stems around, like clockwise probably more often, but in this case anti-clockwise in the image here. So standing tufts, unlike bent nodes, pretty rare. Standing tufts, pretty common. So you'll see them. You won't see them at Normanton Down because there's no flattened circle at Normanton. It's all the pathways, and then there's these standing. Oh, I'll show you it in a minute. If you're thinking what you're talking about, you'll be familiar with it. So standing tufts, so they are. This is a beauty, right? Hang on. 2007. I was talking about the perimeter of the Sompting circle, have that single stem counterflow is what I call it, going against the main flow. In here, it's also in barley. The Sompting was in wheat, but I can't show you a picture of it. You couldn't photograph it, but this path here, the stems flow this way, all just an avenue, and then underneath that sort of metre or so wide path, probably a bit more. It's a very long time ago to remember that exactly. So they were all flowing this way. Again, single stem, flattened the other way underneath, all the way along the pathway. So I was able to sort of track it across right to the end. You couldn't see it because it was underneath the rest, but it was obviously placed before, laid before the main pathway was flattened. You might or might not agree with me, but I think it's impossible to do that. You can't make it happen. But it's also almost impossible to see. So it's in the past I've talked about the point of these features. What's the purpose of that? It makes no difference to the overall design, which is amazing. And I would say, if it wasn't only me that saw that single stem underneath that wider flattened path, it would be a handful of people at most who'd noticed it. Because you've got to be crawling on your hands and knees in the twilight often. So my question or my point is, like, what's the purpose of these features? These intricate details that hardly anyone sees, and you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know to look at it. And my theory with that is that it's just another reflection of the magic that we're talking about. This is a magical thing, and there's something in it for everyone. And lots of people are drawn to the aerial photo, and all the geometry. The condition of the stems inside is where I sort of come in a bit more detail. But those are little gifts. There's little gifts for us, and when you look closely, you don't always find them. But there's little things that just feel like they are for the people who see them, whether we communicate that with everyone else or not. But it's just that little extra dusting of magic for the visitor, which, if you see it, is a lovely thing. There's another. I'll come back to this when I talk about this year, the formation from this year. But the other side to that is finding anomalies. So lots and lots of stems flowing clockwise, but then you have a path flowing anti-clockwise, or one section, maybe one circle out of many, flows anti-clockwise instead of clockwise. And then you get onto some other theories which are around alignments. that's not the perfect example, but if, for example, these stems were flowing the opposite way to all the rest, I might start to track the direction of this line across the landscape. And the second sort of third, there's 2/3 ground details in this book. It's 1/3 alignment, and that's where we sort of come into noticing differences and tracking it across the landscape.
So
Go on, yeah.
did you photograph that?
Oh no, and I should have said it. All of the aerial photos of Steve Alexander's.
I think that was one
Did you
sheet.
photograph the detail?
Oh, inside.
You just described.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And I am here to buy the book, but
Yes.
it's really difficult to see it. So, well, if you have a look, in there. If you find it, you'll see that you can't photograph it. You can't see it. I've included it anyway. You can't see that feature. It's too fine to photograph almost. The basket weave is a lovely thing. It's well, it's not that common, but we've seen quite a lot. Over 20 years plus, we've seen it quite a lot. This is one of the all-time great examples. This is obviously in here, and it's blocks of stems flattened, flattened in squares, overlapping. I don't know that I need to explain it anymore because you can sort of see it, but it's that layering of and the order that starts with this direction here, then this piece, and then this. And if you imagine this on a scale of many hundreds of feet and many hundreds of actual individual elements, it's really striking when you see it. When you see it firsthand, it's an amazing thing, and in the light, it's incredible.
One of the best examples is.
Oh yeah, good. Thank you for pointing it out. The first ever basket weave. Very hard to come by a photo of that. It turns out. Yeah, there we are. That's when it started. What do you reckon the year
We
for
were
that?
there at 8 in the morning and offered £100 again to take photographs for morning precious.
Yeah, and cut within a couple of hours. Yeah. I know that it was photographed inside by Andreas.
Yes. He
So
did
that's-
a
that's it there, yeah.
yes, he did the early reconnaissance drive
Yeah,
and found it at 6:15
yeah,
a.m.
yeah.
and he was lucky enough to take some pictures.
Yeah,
But we know for a fact it happened overnight,
yeah.
and it's just stunning.
It is. It's another of the all-time greatest, isn't it? Really, iconic, especially for that basket weave.
Was this bent at the node as well, or was it broken?
I don't know if that was bent. No, I don't know those sort of details. Oh, this one,
Yeah.
I didn't see any there, but I missed stuff. Yeah, maybe someone else might go and say actually lots of it was, but. So I've talked a bit about counterflow with the single stems, but this is one of my favourites of not single stems, but narrow bands of stems that are flowing clockwise then anti-clockwise. Here's how it's just a really lovely example. I think it's unique in the number of opposing flows, so to speak. So you can see in that rainbow semicircular image, what it is each band here flows one way, and then right next to it, the stems flow the other way. So on the ground, this is in this crop circle. On the ground, it can look a little bit messy, and this is something that I love because, like you can see on here, these are flowing anti-clockwise, these are flowing clockwise. But where they're next to each other, I can only demonstrate it with my hands, and I find myself doing this a lot. I think those stems are flattened at the same time. It's not one path laid, then another one laid, and then another in an order. I think it's like that. So then when they meet, but they're flowing in different directions, they mesh together, right? So that's the only way I can describe it, like a sort of, the ones on the sides flat, and then that's how you get this raised piece, and that's why you have these, that sort of tuftiness that's the in-between. It's where they've tried, maybe they've tried, or maybe however it's happened. They can't be flattened because they've just got lodged together. And it's a lovely thing, and I think occasionally I've walked around crop circles with this feature, which there are a fair few of, and heard people gently commenting on it being a bit messy inside. And actually, I often think when I hear people saying that, there's something in it, because mostly there's a bit more to it than just messiness, which definitely is here. Patterns in the crop are another really subtle thing. So obviously you can see this sort of, I want to say, floral design, but it's quite gentle. But on the ground, it was almost impossible to see. You couldn't make it out. I think I've got a couple of photos. Here's a group who are in there. Oh, you were there? Yeah. I was one of them, yeah.
This was a daytime event, by the
This
way.
was, yeah,
Yes.
right.
I flew over the field and there was nothing, and then afterwards it was reported.
Yeah. So it's happened really quickly. What's the time frame?
Between me flying and the report,
Yeah.
for me it was 1 hour and a half, but Tony Hughes of Yatesbury flew it. There was nothing, and then he came back and it was there, and that was in 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's more to it. That's the best I can do for demonstrating how that looked on the ground, and you just can't make it out. There was no sense of that like gentle pattern that you can see quite clearly from above. It's cool. This is a bit more dramatic and a bit more sort of discernible on the ground, but another that's a lovely example at Pen Hill, I reckon. And that's how that looks. So some of this is standing centres, and this swirl here. Some of it's radial to form that hexagon. Obviously the pathways. But here's a bit of it, and you've got stems coming in this direction, and these clockwise, and then this lovely sort of sweep here as they join. Layers, right? It's just so nice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I counted 6 when I put this together. I reckon there's 6 there. Pretty subtle, because some of them are just a few stems. And what I loved about this is that it was in the Sugar Hill formation, which is, I don't know the geometry. I'm interested, but I don't have a personal skill in it. But I do, that's 6. When you go around the edge, at the least it's 6, and then if you're talking about 6 layers, that's so subtle, it's so nice. And the condition of the stems, once you step on that, I didn't step on that, but you're walking around and your feet are crunching it all down, and you definitely get that sense of damage that you're causing as you're walking about. There it is. Oh, yeah, perfect, right. So this, I'm trying to, just one of my favourite shots, and you can't really see much of it, but this bloom is called this very, very fine dusting, this dust sort of purplish, bluish, white coating that is on the stems when they're green. It's really clear when it's been rubbed off, where there's been some sort of physical contact with it. And then really often in many, many lovely crop circles in green crops, as you can see here, it's all intact. It's so nice. Oh, I said I was going to talk about the standing centre from that Ringmer formation. This is Clay Hill in, I think, 2016. It's quite big. It's quite amazing. All of these sort of petals were incredible, and there were some differences. There were some anomalies to this. Some of them were flowing one way, some the other, lots of different directions. But I'm showing it to you because arguably more of an aerial feature, but it's not. It's a ground feature because you can't walk into there. You can't make a circle or a ring without standing in the middle of it. If you, and I suppose my point is, maybe I'm not making this clear, but I don't think people are making crop circles. I'm going to just make sure you hear that message. I don't think people are stomping around with a plank. I think it's nonsense. Maybe some people make some. And maybe they catch me out sometimes. No one stopped around to make that with a plank, in my belief. And this is massive. That centre standing circle is massive. Like this. This is not as big, but like this. I might have some other examples. Oh yeah. Oh, Jesse, they like it. Oh, the family shot from last year. The wheat is drilled a little bit more sparsely, but you can't walk into the middle of all of these, every single one. It's one of my favourites of last year. Loved it. And I loved it for a lot of reasons, but I'm showing you now because you can't walk in between, even though these have got, you know, the gaps between the rows is slightly wider. It's too good. Ah, yeah. This is definitely longer than half an hour now, right? We haven't seen any. I haven't seen a nest for a little while, I don't think, but they're cool. They're amazing. They're like a if it's not obvious from the picture here. They're a 3D sort of structure. They vary. No one is ever the same as any other, I don't think. They're woven really tightly, and they're woven the crops woven so tightly together that you don't try to pull it apart. But if you give it a bit of a shake around, it doesn't move. You'd be hard pushed to pull it apart because it's really tightly knotted so often. I think I've got a few examples here because it's a really good one. So in 2010 at Windmill Hill, that is the centre circle of what you're seeing here. So this, but then all around there were nests further out. So in some of these outlying circles, all of them different. I'm going to show you a couple. There's a beauty. So when these stems are bent and woven, they just form. We call them nests because that's sort of, you can see why that's a sort of nest shape, but I tend to think of nests as anything sort of 3D structural wise. These are, you might say, more like arches. And if you look at, these are really just lovely. And if you look here, this one, it's got these stems flowing underneath, sort of flowing through it. So perhaps they were flattened before this, or perhaps they were flattened after, but it's pretty intricate stuff, and there were loads. And that is just a lovely kind of subtle, a few stems that are left standing in amongst this like really tightly woven stems, and some knotting inside one of them as well. Oh yeah, look at that. So nice. So these, I can't think now where these come from, but I think they came down and round. Perhaps bent back on themselves, but beautiful. I've just included that because I like it. That was, no, we're talking a few years after when we met in that same field though, isn't it? That square, yeah. The towers of 2006. I'm not going to tell you anything much about the ground details. It's just a nice photo, isn't it? But there were, again, there must be a photo of that in here, Monique.
That's photo upstairs.
Okay, so have a look upstairs because I'm not showing you an aerial perspective, but if you're not familiar with this, it's really something. It's amazing. From an aerial point of view, it's really properly amazing. From a ground perspective, in each of the largest of the towers, and you'll see why, if you can't see from there why I'm saying towers, it's because it looks like that from above. These were basket weave squares, so these three, not the others, just the end, the outlying ones. It's pretty nice. Right, so I was talking about, I'm just going to give you a really small example of more my recent work. I haven't moved away from ground details, but I've become. There's a side hustle which is noticing alignments, noticing anomalies that then point in a certain direction, sometimes tracking that across the landscape, sometimes quite far across the landscape. And then we find that these anomalies within crop circles, or sometimes it's within channel line relationships, and all sorts of different features might point us in a certain direction. And what has been happening over the last, well, let's say 5 years, I think probably, is that these anomalies, when they're tracked, are highlighting either landscape features or they're pinpointing the location of crop circles, sometimes before they appear, sometimes after they've appeared, but it's a very, very fine and accurate alignment. So this doesn't really show you anything, it's just a title page, but these three are some alignments that are from the crop circle that was at Little Horton in 2022, I think. Anyway, Monique, I'm testing your knowledge.
I don't know.
22.
Yeah, I think so.
But so I'm going to illustrate what I mean with this. 2021, love ground detail wise, amazing basket weave, so fluid, it was like sort of liquid. It wasn't quite so defined as those blocks that we saw from the previous one. They were looser, there was more flow, but it was still a basket weave around the perimeter here. That's not the point of this photo though, because we're looking at Avebury. Have I shown you one? No. If you draw a line sort of directly through here, if you can see the stones there, that's the cove stones at Avebury. So the two vertices of this hexagon, when joined through, perfectly hit the cove stones here. So that's not that far away, but I don't know if any of you went to this, if you were standing in it, because of the henge, which is tall, you can't see what's inside inside the henge. So it's not like, oh, there are the stones and here's our alignment. You just can't see it, only from above. Do you two go on that trip? Did we go on that trip to Avebury?
I think that was after I left.
Oh, really? Elise?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Someone.
I'm sure one of you did.
Yeah, I reckon. We take the children to, if you haven't gathered, I'm a teacher, and then one of our trips is Avebury and West Kennet Longbarrow. Right, so you've got the cove stone alignment with this, and then it gets better because, there's the cove, that's the cove stones, that's the exact position of the formation, and then perfectly aligned. But then, we're not satisfied. I'm pretty satisfied with that, but we're not satisfied because you also notice as you draw a line all the way across here, it's going into the distance. So then, of course, we wonder what it points to. I'll show you what it points to. This. It's perfect. It's not an old white horse. It's 24 years old, millennium horse. It's the most recent white horse, as far as I know. Don't know of any more, but it's just cool. It's cool because here's your formation, and then miles and miles across the landscape in a straight line, just going to get to the white horse. It's so perfect, and it's not the only crop circle. I don't think it's not even the only one in 2021 that points directly to this horse. There was another formation at Roundway. I'm not going to show you the picture of that now. It's in the book. It's not really meant as a plug, but that's what I'm here, isn't it? I'm actually here because I just love crop circles, and if you don't get that by now, I'm not doing this talk very well. Yeah, and that was just a little narrow path of stems that were pointing in a different direction to all the others. And then when you track exactly where that narrow path of stems pointed to, across, not quite so far, a mile, say half a mile maybe, it perfectly hits this. But you've got to notice the stems that are flowing a different way, and then follow it. And that is the joy of it, because if you don't see the stems going a different way, then you don't know that they're, for whatever reason that I don't know, pointing to the millennium horse.
Did you track it beyond White Horse?
Yeah, but I can't remember whether that one got to anywhere. If you imagine, there's a lot of maps where there's just lines all over, and so yes, and there were some other alignments from that, but I can't remember them all off the top of my head. But yeah, I usually track as far as I can go before the sort of curvature of the Earth makes it harder to do. Right, so this year. There've been a few crop circles. I'm not going to show you all of them. If you do go on my website, they're on there. I don't think. Oh yeah, the most recent one is my photos aren't on there yet. I'm just going to show you some pictures from inside it. So here it is. You probably know it. We could do a show of hands. Has anyone been up to it? Do you know?
Tried it, can't find it. So
Okay, I'll tell you exactly how to find it. Yeah, I think those instructions are good,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if you can easily pass it by because you can't see it. Oh, it's so good as well. Yeah, you love it. This is Hugh Newman's photo, not Steve Alexander, but he has flown it yesterday, so they're coming up on temporary temples. What I was talking about was these standing circles. So those are pretty amazing, and I quite like the fact that the centre of this, I mean, it's right next to the tram line, but even the one on the tram line isn't directly. The tram line doesn't go directly through the centre, and although it's a square, there's a lot of amazing geometry with this. My friend Peter Vandenberg has done quite a lot of analysis of it, and what we might expect is the squaring of the circle, which is very, very much there, and it's very accurate, but there's a lot more to it. So the standing centres, circular or square, are pretty amazing. But it's actually all about a feature that I haven't talked about this afternoon, where you've got the standing stems. Well, it's on here. You've got standing stems. You've got flattened stems. On the edge, where those two meet, you can have very clear definition. Here's the standing, here's the flat. It's really crisp, right? More often, it's not that. More often, the stems are sort of swept gently down so that as they land, one's in the middle of the pathway are flatter here, but the stems on the side are sort of, I perceive this, that it's done so gently that they just haven't really been flattened. They've sort of really gently just got held up on the standing stems that form the perimeter, whatever shape it is. So this crop circle is, apart from those standing centres in the circles, this is all about that sweep, that gentleness, because everywhere you look, it's like this, and it's just exquisite, and the condition of the stems is perfect. They're all, on the perimeter, especially if I go back, how to describe it, especially on the outer edge of each of those pathways, is more defined. It feels like the energy is sort of swept with a sort of outward, because it's clockwise, with this outward flow, so that so you get this, and it's really everywhere. And it's really, you'll see this when you go there today.
Yeah.
You see just exactly what I mean. It's so good. I was taken with this to the extent that I sort of pushed my camera into the standing crop, because this is exactly the same place, but so these are the stems that I held up, and then that's taken from inside here to show what it looks like, and it's amazing because it's really clearly defined. It's really clear. The image, that aerial image, is really clearly defined, but when you're on the ground, it's not clearly defined at all. It's just so gentle, and I love it. There's some more. It goes on, but this is how they are, and you can sort of see that sweep around the corner. That might be it. This is the corner. One of the corners sort of would go into the edge of there. The edge of geometrically, the outer corner is here, but along tram lines you get stems that ripen more slowly. So you get these green stems that they don't tend to flatten so much, or they spring back up. It's pretty good. Oh yeah, I'll just show you one more thing, I think. Right, this, when you're in it, you'll look out for this when you go there. You'll figure out where you come in along here, so then you'll identify where this is. This pathway has, let's say, 6 to 8 inches. Everything's clockwise, apart from the inner edge of just this line, where the stems flow the other way. So it's just another perfect example of a counter flow. Only there, I've obviously walked around the whole thing, measured the whole thing, and that's the only one. And I haven't tried to track this yet. I've got someone working on it. I haven't had time, but that line is exactly east to west. So whether we track this and across the landscape, it's going to point to the Normanton barrows are all over, so it's probably going to hit some of those. But whether it goes anywhere further, it's something to think about. It's cool. On the ground, I don't know how easy it is to see. It looks like that. These stems are coming this way, and then this is the path that's flowing sort of anti-clockwise, so to speak. It's a square, but if you follow the square around anti-clockwise, so the main flow is clockwise, and then these are anti-clockwise. That might be it. We go on. It's the same thing. Look at the condition of the stems. It's so pristine. So pristine. This might be it. I'm building up to the big finish. There it is. Amazing. Pardon?
When was that laid down?
Can I look at my own website to find out? 14?
14.
That be right? Do you think that's right?
Exactly. 1 week ago. Yes.
1 week
It's
ago.
recorded on Sunday.
And we're able to go there today.
Yeah. Definitely do it. It's really good. You can donate to the Stonehenge Alliance. You can do
Yes,
that here
the farmer.
with a
Yeah.
scan. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're very, very grateful to that farmer and to Monique, because it's negotiated that we're allowed in, so that makes things
So where
infinitely
is
better.
Normanton?
Where is it? Oh, sorry, Stonehenge.
Stonehenge.
Yeah. So you just turn off on the byway, the south side of the A303. Drive a little way, walk back.
Can you just mention that it gets deeply rotted further,
The track.
Yeah.
and
Very cool.
it is an access track into the field as
Yeah.
well.
I found I stopped, you might have done the same thing, there's a gate, there's a wider area, there's a gate, and you
Yeah.
can sort of, it
It's
felt
not
like a
that
natural
bend,
place to
isn't it?
stop. Yeah, then it goes up,
If
yeah.
you walk up the track and then you keep looking on your right hand side as you're walking up the track, you'll eventually come to a gate that's really bent.
Yeah,
Curbs,
It's a curved
yeah.
gate.
Like it's being ramped by something, yeah.
probably
it's the
by
first-
the farmers, it's going, with this equipment.
Yeah, exactly. It's the first wheat field, and it's the first one past the trees.
You get into the tram line which runs down the field, and then it's the 5th set of tram lines.
Going
Yeah.
to number 1 over the gate, go along till you reach the 5th and then turn in.
Yeah.
And it's signed, Austin put little tags where they'll still be there
Oh,
this
right.
way. But,
Yeah. I think this is my last one, so. It's like I've done it on purpose, it's not, it's just good. Here we go, look. Got carried away. Oh, there we are, it's all about the book. It's all about prop circles. Yeah, there you have it. Okay, thank you very much.